Eater of Souls. It's a series that usually got more discussion over its narrative than visuals, but honestly, I think fans forget how well animated and storyboarded this show was. It was putting out cool scythe-swinging, nose-bleeding action on the regular. But there was this one particular Soul Eater animator that inspired an entire generation of animators with his work on the series, and kind of inspired one of the biggest action stars of the 2010s, who intentionally went out of his way to challenge him. So let's talk about Yutaka Nakamura. Now, he did so many stupidly good scenes on this show that it's a bit hard to pick one, but this Tsubaki fight was one that was pretty memorable. Oh, well, at least for me. So right from the start, it's like you got a leaf blower and blew it up his cape. There's a lot of realism to the way Nakamura draws clothing, more rounder, circular shapes, better emphasize the force coming from below. Then small delay, have it move around then flap up at the last moment, making for a smooth transition. This drawing is sick as well, it's such great composition, the black over the face and using it across the cape. This is why I'll never agree with the side who are like, every panel has to stick exactly to the manga, which would be a little hard anyway because this scene isn't even in the manga in the first place. But yeah, personally I think giving animators freedom can allow for more interesting composition and expressions. There's also other little details like suspending the droplets in the air, that's pretty nice. Again, the way he draws clothing is so good, it's these big rounded shapes. Imagine like a fluffy cloud. It's like there's this kind of applied force that stays underneath, it gets pushed off to the side, then comes back around. There's also that element of fluctuation, so he draws the cape in a flat way, then those large fluffy shapes come out, then flatten again. Then they get bigger and bigger again. There's also that effects layering he does, switching over to the one time he animated on One Piece. He has one wall of effects come up behind, then a second layer, then a third one in front, before another one comes up and covers the camera. And it's pretty much the same thing here. You got the first burst of water, then the second one which again covers the camera. It's this progressive build-up of intensity, but also helps create this smooth transition into the next cut. Then you have the second component, and that is scale through composition. This is something that he consistently does in all his work, and is partially what gives that, I guess, cinematic quality to his work. He brings the camera right out to really emphasize this massive explosion of water. The angle as well is very three-dimensional. He's not framing whatever this thing is front on, at eye level in a generic way. Now switching over to the original animation roughs he did, Tsubaki goes for this sideward thrust, then small pause, makes it feel like there's actually weight behind the enemy's attack, like it's a struggle to cut through. Also nice detail to have her cover the stab wound. And on top of all that, there's also a good sense of suspense. By blocking out this attack with the effects wave, it gives that feeling of where is she, what happened? Then she pops through with the blade in her other arm, but I do like that choice. I think a lot of animators would have just had her run through. But of course with Nakamura it has to be a jump, every movement has a bit of flair to it. And that definitely goes for the next movement with this very animated spin. She doesn't just jump into it, she leads with her shoulder. That's where all the directional force is going. Then when she lands, all that weight in the upper body comes down. There's also other animation principles like overlap and follow through with the hair. In how it flaps up when she spins around, then comes down, just a very loose motion. Nakamura then moves it to some kind of aerial combat, which is good, adds some variety, makes the action more fun. The blood splatters are pretty detailed and intense as well, and although it might seem, a little over the top, you do have to keep in mind everything is moving pretty fast. And as an animator, you have to communicate your ideas to the audience quickly and clearly, and exaggeration is a good way to do it. Then the next cut, such cool foreshortening here with the posing. Then the final hit, once again, a good sense of scale through the storyboarding, but also how he conveys impact through simplicity. Nakamura draws this big sphere around the characters, it's got this blue and white base, a bit abstract. But also the color choice as well, it's just so simple but clever. The blue creates a strong visual contrast to the Red Sea. It's distinctive framing. But also symbolically, it's a nice touch as a little later after Masamune's death, the water fully turns to blue. Overall, when you put all these little elements together, it brings this exciting feeling to his combat, which I think few animators on the show were able to match, and I would say the industry at large at the time, because as I said at the start, he was putting out heat on the regular, and what's kind of interesting is that everything we just went over wasn't in the manga at all. And knowing that he often does storyboard his own scenes, I think it's fair to credit this whole scene to the brain of Yutaka Nakamura. Of course, animation though is a team effort. There's still all the Doga artists which would have helped work on this scene and the compositing staff. So I kinda mean more so in, I guess, the sense of ideas on display. But with that was the final thing I had to say. It's been so long since I've talked about Soul Eater. So to the 3 of you who stayed subbed since my last video on this series, thank you, hope you enjoyed, and of course, thank you to my patrons. But with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.